Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martin G, and I run Corda Club. And I'm going to tell you a little bit this afternoon about how Corda Club works and tell you some of the amazing things that we've built over the last year. Corda Club celebrated its one-year anniversary in August this year. And over the last year, I'm proud to say that we have racked up some pretty impressive statistics. So we've run 9 extended hackathon events, over 37 Corda Club evenings, with 16 team mentors, 3 of whom, I'm proud to say, were homegrown mentors. They delivered 228 hours of tuition, built 17 Corda Apps, were judged by 11 judges, and over that time, over the last year, I'm proud to say 104 developers have written their first Corda App with Corda Club. 1 new company founding team have been introduced, and 9 participants have gone on to get a Corda-related job after attending Corda Club. Now, so I set up Corda Club, or Corda Scouts, as it was first conceived, because in the summer of 2017, I decided to take my 8 years' experience of recruiting programmers and set out on my own as an independent recruiter. And by November, I'd spent 6 months specializing in the blockchain technology sector. And having come from a career recruiting Java developers for the fintech sector, the idea of recruiting JavaScript developers for Ethereum-based utility token startups was just never going to be my thing. So when I discovered Corda, it was really very much love at first sight. Unlike the ICO-fueled blockchain market, Corda was a JVM-based enterprise technology funded by a consortium of investment banks. With Corda, I had a plausible technology, a massive pool of potential candidates, and projects funded by real-life money. And with Corda, the only Bitcoin maximalist that I was going to have to worry about was called Mike Hearn. So I set up Corda Club because it was a technology that I could believe in, and because I could see that for the amount of demand that was going to be coming, there simply weren't going to be enough Corda developers coming through. I saw this as a way that I could do something to create Corda developers to meet that demand, as a way that I could actually do something quite special as a recruiter and move from the reactive role that a recruiter normally plays in meeting market demand to a proactive one, where I could be part of the community, understanding what skills the market is going to be demanding, and run training sessions so I would be ready to meet that demand when it came out. Finally, I realized that if I was going to be successful in recruiting new people into the Corda community, I was going to have to run Corda Club on a pro bono basis. I would have to make sure that people knew that they could go to Corda Club without any obligations to work with me as a recruiter. So Corda Club is what you call a category growth strategy. It's where you rely on growing the total size of the market, and I would have to rely on members approaching me if they wanted a job working in Corda. So working with the then R3 DevRel team, Case Manai and Joel Dudley, we put together the format of a Corda Club event. Our extended hackathon events run from 6 till 8 o'clock on each Tuesday evening for 6 weeks and provide first-timers with the opportunity to learn Corda within a supportive environment. And more experienced developers with an opportunity to build Corda apps for interesting use cases, learn new Corda features like the token SDK, and get to grips with open source tools like Corda. On the first night, the participants form into teams, and each team is assigned a team mentor who is an expert in Corda. Then the specific use case or theme of this event is introduced by an industry expert. So for instance, for the construction event we ran, we had a guy called Abel Maciel, who was a senior research fellow at the UCL faculty for the built environment and engineering. And for the Texas Hold'em poker event we ran, we had Dominic Wells, who is a World Series standard poker player, come and explain the rules of the game to us. The teams then spend the rest of the first evening working with their mentor, who introduces the major themes and concepts of Corda, and they work as a team to come up with the idea of the Corda app they're going to build. Over the next 4 weeks, the teams work with their mentor to get set up and learn how to write the states, flows, and contracts, and all the things necessary to implement their idea as a Corda app. One thing that we found that's quite important about running the extended hackathons and having the mentors is that it's really important that the mentors are totally hands-off and know that they're there to provide guidance and advice and not to get too much involved in writing any code. Otherwise, what happens is the participants go there, they do 6 weeks, and they end up not learning very much Corda at all. On the sixth and final evening, each of the teams spends 10 minutes demonstrating their Corda apps to a panel of the judges. And over the last year, we have been honoured to have some amazing judges. We've had Mike Hearn, Richard Gendel-Brown of R3. He's actually been a judge for 2 sessions. And we've had some amazing startup CTOs and founders come along as well. So we've had and be judges. So we've had Nigel Quantick of Digital ID startup ID Works. We've had Richard Crook from tokenization consultancy Lab 577. We've had Richard Green, who at the time worked for the insurance-based Blockshaw. We've had Oliver von Landsberg-Sardi of Digital Asset Broker Group, and John Reynolds of Instant Property Network. And we're really grateful to have had such fantastic judges, because having people like that really helps to do justice to all the hard work that someone will have had to put in to build a Corda app over the period of 6 weeks for the very first time. After the final demonstration, the judges spend about 15 minutes deliberating, and all the participants break out to another room for a well-earned drink, and everyone breathes a sigh of relief. The judges then award prizes to 2 of the teams. There's a technical prize for the best Corda code, and the business prize for the best implementation of Corda for the given use case. And I always try and make sure the prizes are something fun. So we've had everything from T-shirts to mugs to Corda Code Club branded poker chip keyrings and our unique signature Corda Code Club winner Lego branded figure. Finally, after the award ceremony is finished, we all go on to a restaurant for a well-earned celebration. Now, one of the crazy things we found about working with Corda over the past year is that because everything is still so new, there's this sense that you almost can't do anything without being the first one to do it. And we really have been home to so many of the first of their kind Corda apps. So I'm pretty sure that we've been home to the world's first decentralized credit scoring Corda app, the world's first construction contracts management Corda app, the first peer-to-peer neighborhood energy trading Corda app, first property conveyancing Corda app, the first and probably only sustainable fishing rights Corda app. But to be honest, I think that some of those first-of-their-kind Corda apps, despite their novelty, couldn't really claim to be groundbreaking. I think it's fair to say that many of those Corda apps were fairly simple proof of concepts for people who were just learning Corda for the first time. First of their kinds, yes, but technically fairly trivial technical implementations of the features that Corda provides. But there were a couple of sessions that we ran that were genuinely groundbreaking. For instance, last December, we ran a 6-week session to try to write a decentralized bug bounty scheme that would use the features of the open source Corda framework to build a digital mutual. So that was December 2018, just 8 weeks after Ben Wyeth had unveiled the digital mutual run on Corda at CordaCon 2018, and we had 32 people in a room working out how they were going to build a Corda-based decentralized autonomous organization where identified bugs in open source software could be published in an open market, then priced by interested parties, and the best solution would be rewarded through a payment in digital tokens, the governance of which would be run by the open source community through the model of a digital mutual. The teams came up with loads of amazing solutions. The ones that I could remember were ones where you would actually be buying bug fixers time with reward tokens rather than paying for actual bug fixes. A reputation-based system where the rewards increase the harder people say a bug is to fix, and bug fixers renting identified bugs from vendors. But the team that came up with the most complete solution was a team consisting of Matt Layton, Richard Miller, and Dan Newton. Their Zizzler solution was a reputation points-based system, which involved bug committers submitting their bugs on the DAO, developers then submitting pull requests for their proposed fixes, the best of which would be chosen by the bug committer to go forward for the voting process. The bug committer and other interested parties called enthusiasts would then stake the amount of money that fixing bugs held for them, which would be represented by how many votes they could award to the different pull requests. The chosen pull request would then be upvoted by the enthusiasts, and when the voting process was closed by the bug committer, the money would then be distributed to the developers who received votes, ensuring that everyone who submitted a fix gets paid, but the fix with the most votes receives the most money. It had a GitLab front end, and it was mainly run through the messaging system. Building games on Corda is an area that's been relatively unexplored so far. So the extended hackathons we ran to try to write the Texas Hold'em Poker Corda app and the trading-based colony establishment board game Settlers of Catan were also examples of where Corda Code Club has been really pushing the boundaries of what's been done with Corda. And when you think about it, games with no central point of authority, such as poker or Settlers of Catan, are not only a great way to understand how Corda works, but are also a great use case to explore the decentralized nature of Corda. And we found trying to faithfully map a peer-to-peer game onto a Corda app is actually a great way to really test what the platform can do. So the original idea of seeing if we could create a Texas Hold'em poker-based Corda app was actually born in the pub one evening, when someone pointed out that although there were many blockchain-based card game dApps in existence, none of them were multiplayer peer-to-peer. They were all player versus machine. And we reckoned that the reason for that was that because in all other blockchains, like Ethereum, transaction details are public and don't support complex multi-party negotiations. When we realized what we had stumbled upon, it felt like the gauntlet had been well and truly thrown down. And Corda could do all those things that public blockchain technologies couldn't. And so despite it being possible, until that point, no one seemed to have attempted it. Over the next 8 weeks, 5 teams worked on separate implementations of their own Texas Hold'em Poker Corda app. We began by having identified 3 core challenges of mapping the game rules onto a Corda network. They were to create a multiplayer dynamic, creating fairness by guaranteeing the randomness of each card dealt, and ensuring that each player's cards were private. But once teams got started, we realized there were plenty more constraints that we hadn't even considered, like ensuring that players couldn't renege on past decisions and working out how to map the idiosyncratic betting procedures of each round onto Corda. By the final evening, we had 2 complete Corda apps. The first team to set up was Team Bluff, consisting of Xavier Lepetre and Dimash Danabek. I think it's fair to say that everyone was simply blown away by their Corda app. The very completeness of it was a very close representation of all the rules of Texas Hold'em poker. It did have some outstanding development to be done before a game could be played on it, but it was amazing. Some of the highlights are that a deck would be shuffled, and then each card would be given a salt, which would be used for its hash value, and then the card, which is used for its hash value, and then the card set is saved into a Merkle tree. And cards could then be distributed in the flows, but only the recipient can look at the card by calling the Merkle root using its hash. Here we can see how their flows represented the progression of the game. They then showed us some of their working code. I was blown away by what they presented, and looking out at the rest of the audience, I could see that there were plenty of open mouths and suitably impressed looks on everybody's faces. And I remember thinking to myself, there is no way that I would want to be in the next team's shoes. I would not want to follow that act. But I have to say, to our absolute astonishment, the next demo was possibly even better. Sorry, Dav. Team Texas Hold'em, Rajesh Somasundaram and Jalal Hanan then presented a live demonstration of their Corda app by playing a round of poker in front of our very eyes. And I think what Rajesh did was impressive for 2 reasons. He'd been able to do it in 6 weeks, what no one else had been able to do. He'd come to the party with a Corda app that you could actually play Texas Hold'em poker on. And secondly, and I don't think Rajesh would mind me telling you this, it was doubly impressive because Rajesh had clearly never played a game of poker before and didn't actually seem to know the rules very well. So I think at one point, he was talking through his Corda app and he said something like, oh, and here, this player decides to double his bet to £50 on this set of cards. And I remember Anthony shouting, don't do it, that's a terrible bet. So, but yeah, I mean, and the truth is that he was only able to produce a working Corda app in such a short space of time by sacrificing some of the governance that you need to ensure that players weren't cheating. But the fact that he delivered a working Corda app of that nature in such a short space of time really was, meant that no one minded because it was absolutely awesome. Now, at this point, I'm pretty sure I'll be running out of time, but if I did, there's some of the code from Rajesh, and there is Rajesh and Jalal there, getting their key rings. So at this point, I think I'm running out of time, but so I'm just going to whiz through some of the other stuff we've done. The amazing Settlers of Cordan event that Nick Rogers of R3 in the New York office set up for us was just fantastic. This was a little bit different from our usual hackathon format because we were all working on the same Corda app, but Nick had set it up so there were a set of raised issues on GitHub, on the GitHub repo labeled easy, medium, and hard. So we could provide our participants with suitably challenging issues to work on. And because this board game is relatively complex, had enough rules and features to make working on it about as close as you can get to having experience of developing a real enterprise-grade Corda app without actually working for a company and developing a commercial Corda app. I'd also tell you about how Matt Layton launched the Corda Academy teaching aid Corda Code Club this summer, which is an important contribution to the set of open source Corda libraries and learning aids that we have. I'll tell you about how we've been able to react to market demand by running events like how to build a test automation framework for your Corda app, event by Nathan Chi Mudwaka. And I'll tell you what we discovered about how people actually learn Corda and how important we found it is to ensure that first-timers walk away from their first evening with a really solid foundational understanding of how states, flows, and contracts all work with each other. And finally, I'll tell you about how one of our very own, Jalal Hanan, became a finalist at the R3 InsurTech Challenge, overcoming another 54 entrants to make it down to the final 14 teams, beating off entries from far bigger companies with far more resources and far bigger budgets. So I want to finish this talk in telling you that I'm delighted to say that the next Corda Code Club event will be held, introductory course come hackathon event. It's going to start on the 5th of November. And this one is going to be hosted by RBS. And it's going to be on the theme of building exchanges on Corda. And I welcome everyone here today to come along and take part. Corda Code Club was created out of the hope that I could bring some value to the Corda community, out of the desire to improve on the normal technology meetup format. Effectively, it was born out of the ashes of too many evenings spent bored to tears at technology meetups. I'm sure I'm not the only one here who's found themselves checking work emails at a technology meetup and then looked out to see that everyone else is too, or maybe even seen someone falling asleep in a technology meetup, or maybe even falling asleep yourself. But Corda Code Club is different. It's all about learning, networking, programming, and one of our rules is no boring PowerPoint. It's a place where you can go to learn and improve your Corda skills and connect to the rest of the community, where you can build your first Corda app, get answers to questions from Corda experts, be right at the heart of the community, and in short, be part of the best technology meetup in London.
I do believe we have some questions on the app. The first one is, did anyone take these concepts and create a usable game for the general public? And if so, where would I find one?
You can find both the repos for the Texas Hold'em. Whose question was that? Yeah, you can find both the repos for the two working ones online. You can reach out to me, but I think they're actually both on the meetup page. No one took it through for use by the public, and that's simply because Corda is not ready to be used by individuals at the moment. It was designed to be used by enterprises, and we were talking one night about how we could sort of run it through, sort of get multiple users with virtual nodes on the cloud. I think there's like a virtual node capability with Corda, but we came to the decision that either Corda wasn't ready to be used by the mass public, or we couldn't do it. So.
Thank you. The next question is, are extended hackathons geographically constrained?
Yeah, they are really. And whose question was that? Yeah, they are really. For the next one, we've actually got a team in RBS in Scotland who would quite like to take part, but the problem is they're just not going to get any of the value of having a physical place to go and meet the Corda community. So, they won't get the scales, the economy of scale that you get with having lots of mentors and people in the same room. And it'd be easy for them to lose heart or lose momentum going through it. They wouldn't have to necessarily turn up at 6 o'clock and leave again at 8. There'd be much less pressure to actually get something delivered on each of the 6 evenings. So I'd like to find out a way to, decouple it from from its geographical dependency. But at the moment, I can't work out a way to do that.
And another question is, in what places do you see Corda job demand besides London?
Germany. There's Germany and Switzerland. There's loads of demand in Switzerland and Germany. I didn't actually realise this, how big the German market was until a couple of weeks ago. Anyone here can have a look at the Corda meetup for Frankfurt, and if you have a look at who the speakers were, apart from the guys from R3, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, there was a system being built there was a Corda app being built by Daimler, Vodafone. There was loads of ones that I just didn't even realise existed. So there's definitely a sizable market in Germany, and obviously with B3I and SDX in Zurich, that's pretty massive.
Okay, well, thank you, Martin, again.
Right.